Welcome to the ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright, an exciting thrill ride through the wonderful world of HBCU athletics. Before our trip begins, let's set a few ground rules. First, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Second, hit the like button. Third, please be sure to tell someone else about this show. Now that we've got these things out of the way, it's time for our journey to begin. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your ride.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another spectacular episode of The Ride here on Sunday Recap. You know what you always got to do. You make sure you hit the like button. You make sure you subscribe, all the things that we said in that earlier montage. Now, it's time to fire it up. And this is the time where we go through the fabulous run-through montage of all of the games from week number 3. All right, here we go. In Greensboro, it was the CAA opener between North Carolina A&T and the Hampton Pirates. Hampton led this game 20-10 with 1:40 remaining in regulation. Somehow, mysteriously, forgot that there was still time left on the clock, started pulling starters. North Carolina A&T down to their 7th quarterback of the season already. Leads them down the field, scores a touchdown. They recover an onside kick with 48 seconds left. Then he drives them back down the field. They kick a field goal to send it to overtime. They go to overtime, tied at 20. In the first overtime, both teams exchange touchdowns. The second overtime, Hampton kicks a field goal to go up 30-27. And then Wesley Graves, as part of his 87 yards rushing, he had the game-winning 5-yard touchdown run to finish the deal and get the North Carolina A&T Aggies the first win of the Sean Gibbs era. 33-30 in 2 overtimes. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the show. In Orangeburg, South Carolina, it was an old MEAC rivalry as the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats came to town. The Bulldogs raced out to a 41-13 lead, and then Cam Ransom showed up as part of his 302 yards in the air, 4 touchdowns passing, 89 rushing, 2 touchdowns on the ground. They actually made it a game, but Ryan Stubblefield, 286 in the air, led the Bulldogs down the stretch, and they pull off the win 55-41. As South Carolina State next week, they head to South Florida for another payment game. And then Bethune-Cookman, crazy dangerous one on the horizon with undefeated Edward Waters coming to Bethune-Cookman. In Toledo, payment game. Morgan State, they fall to 0-3, gaining only 56 yards of offense and 4 first downs. Not competitive in any stretch of the imagination as the Toledo Rockets roll 60-0. Morgan State, they return home to face Central State next week. In Piscataway, New Jersey, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights welcome Michael Vick Spartans. And Otto Coons, he started. Had a struggle all day. Kevon King did find the end zone, but in the end, Ethan Kaliakmanis, 309 in the air with a touchdown. Rutgers, big, 60-10. Norfolk State, 1-2 on the year. They head back home to face Sacred Heart Pioneers next week. In Durham, North Carolina, the North Carolina Central Eagles get back in the win column, even in their record at 2-2 on the year. Walker Harris, 387 in the air, 3 touchdowns, one of them to Mekhi Wall. The Fayetteville State Broncos, 2 turnovers on the night, 11 penalties. It was a struggle for those guys as they took on a former CIAA rival. But North Carolina Central, they were effective more and more often. as they get ready for the Aggie Eagle Classic next week in Greensboro, 49-19. And Delaware State back in the win column 2 weeks in a row. Caden Bennett, 179 passing, 2 touchdowns in the air with another rushing touchdown to his ledger. James Jones, 8 rushes, 100 yards. They raced out to a 30-7 halftime lead and never looked back, defeating the Bowie State Bulldogs. So the Hornets 2-1 on the air. They go to PA to face St. Francis next week. In East Rutherford, New Jersey, it was the HBCU New York Football Classic. The Howard Bison get to 2-1 as they outscored Morehouse 24-7 in the second half to break open what was a close game. Tariq Starks, 241 passing, 2 touchdowns passing, 1 rush touchdown, led the attack, 38-10 Bison with another victory. Next week, it's the Battle of the Real HU in D.C. as Hampton comes to town. And now we switch to the SWAC. Alcorn State, this was a rough one for them. More cowbells all the time. They struggled, got out 42-0 at the half. They were outgained 514 to 155 and committed 3 turnovers. The Bulldogs of Mississippi State, 63-0 in this one. Alcorn, they get a bye week. Where? Next time they play, they'll be in Memphis facing UAPB. Speaking of UAPB, welcome to the winner's circle, Golden Lions. Now, Christian Peters had his struggles. He did throw for a touchdown, but he had 3 interceptions that kept what should have been a lopsided game close. But Jalen Jennings came up to save the day. 26 carries, 226, 4 touchdowns. As the UAPB Golden Lions get in the winner's circle for the first time on the year, headed into their bye week where they do take on Alcorn State next. Then shout out to Valley. Shout out to Valley. They went to Hammond, Louisiana in Strawberry Stadium. Southeast Louisiana jumped out 28-3 in the first quarter, never looked back. Kyle Lowe, 3 touchdowns passing. Carson Camp, 2 touchdowns passing. 447 yards gained. Later, and it's Valley down 56-3. Valley, good news for them. They go on their bye week, where they face Texas Southern next. Cheer up, Valley. It'll get better. In Fresno, late last night, the Fresno State Bulldogs, led by Kurt Warner's son, E.J. Warner, 20-24, 240 yards and 4 touchdowns. They hold Southern to just 142 total yards. 56-7 was the victory in this game. Southern, they fall at 1-3 headed into their bye week. They got a lot of things to work on, and they will come out of that bye week facing the Jackson State Tigers there on the Bluff. In Montgomery, it was the home opener for the Alabama State Hornets. Behind Andrew Body's 4 touchdowns passing, 2 of them to Jalen Jones. They raced out 31-3 at the half and never looked back, 37-9 over Miles. And for Alabama State, they head into their bye week where they will face the Florida A&M Rattlers. And in what was described as a disgusting display of football down there in Houston, man, Texas Southern, they had 2 blocked punts returned for a touchdown. They were outgained 467 to 192. It was a lot of struggles. The Lamar Cardinals come to town and leave with a 31-7 victory. Texas Southern heads to their bye week where they'll face Valley in 2 weeks. Also in Houston, this game was a little bit closer. I actually picked 38-17. That's what the final score was. The Rice Owls behind Chase Jenkins, 86 yards passing, had a touchdown in the air, but he did his damage with 21 rushes, 124 on the ground, as they get a 38-17 win over the Prairie View Panthers. Prairie View, they return home next week to face the Northwestern State Demons. Alcorn State can tell you about that team. In Tallahassee, down there in the Bragg, it was the FAMU Rattlers. They got all they can handle from the Albany State Rams. Isaiah Knowles, 201 passing. They had to lead 14-10 at the half, but then the offense woke up. R.J. Johnson, 272 in the air, 2 touchdowns, a long one to Kanari Wilcher, who had 121 himself. And Thad Franklin, welcome back to the offense. 15 rushes, 76 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Just enough Rattlers to win 33-25, and they get in the winner's circle for the first time this year, headed into their bye week where they'll face Alabama State next. Then down there in Jackson, this was a total group effort by a bunch of freshmen and second and third string players that got a whole lot of playing time. Jared Lockhart, true freshman, got the start in this one. 14 out of 20, 257, a touchdown in the air, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. They outgained Tuskegee 5-11-109 in a 30-0 shutout. Jackson State heads to their bye week where they face Southern in 2 weeks. Then one of the games of the night, Kentucky State gave Grambling all they could handle. They had the lead late 31-24. Then Zay said, let them down the field. As part of his 99 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, he scored the game-tying touchdown to send it to overtime. Then, on the first possession of overtime, Terrell Raby, he strips a ball carrier from Kentucky State, returns it 83 yards for a fumble in overtime. This was very controversial, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. For the meantime, Grambling gets a win, 37-31. That's their second win of the year. And next week, East Texas A&M comes to the And then last but not least, my Alabama A&M Bulldogs. They hold Tennessee State scoreless in the second half, forcing 2 key turnovers. Quad Brown was great again, 21-33, 329 in the air with 2 touchdowns. Also, Kendrick Grimes, he was great himself, 24 rushes, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns himself. But in the end, it was A&M grinding it out after a 45-yard game-winning field goal by Mr. Barbosa. Alabama A&M 23-21. Next week, they'll take on Lane. And, whoo, a crazy, 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 crazy time, y'all. What a crazy time. So, let's see where we want to start tonight. We got so many options of where we want to start tonight. I will talk about my A&M Bulldogs here in a second, but I do want to start with this one. This game right here. Right here. If you didn't see this game, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm getting ready to show you here, if you didn't see it, I'll show you.
Down a little bit more for Kentucky State. And it's a fumble. Grambling gets the football. They did not call that ball down. 30, 20, 10, 5. It's a touchdown for Grambling State University.
Now, first of all, let me just talk about how bad the camera work was. SWAT TV, we got to do better with this. Throughout this broadcast, man, you guys know you heard a lot of voices in the background. You heard the Grambling radio broadcast at the same time while Santoria Black and those guys were talking. Okay, now here's what's really crazy about this play. This is what I love, how I can just back this up. Okay, now as you can see, let's get here. We'll start right here, guys. All right, the ball carrier for Kentucky State. This is, you can see it's in overtime. This is the very first possession of overtime. Okay, he's got the ball right here at the 12.5-yard line. Okay, 12.5-yard line, y'all. All right. So as he's at the 12.5-yard line, you can go forward and you see how he's pushed back, pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. He still has the ball right here, 15-yard line, 16-yard line. Okay, he's pushed back almost 4 yards, 4 full yards, and no whistle blows. Come on, man. SWAC refs, we got to be better than this, man. And yes, these are SWAC refs. These are the SWAC refs. 4 full yards before a whistle, no whistle even blows. Okay, here, I'll bring it back again. All right. He's right here. He's right here at the 12 and a half. 12 and a half yard line. He's got the ball. Okay. And then you go push back, push back, push back, push back, push back, push back right there. Okay. And then Raby strips him and takes the ball and goes the other way. Okay. It is just insanity how that happened. How there was no whistle on that play. Okay. Now, what I also want to talk about too in this, because obviously, we know about how this call was. We know this call ultimately was where this non-call is what decided the football game. But I also want to take you to a few things that Kentucky State did that where we shouldn't even have gotten to that point. Okay. So I'll go back to in regulation where Kentucky State has a 28-24 lead. Okay. So, you know, what ended up happening was, then you know what? Let me pause right here. Thank you. The school, I appreciate this correction. Okay. So the SWAC just brought, this is what you got down there in Grambling. Okay. All right. Thank you for the correction. Shout out to my From the Hill podcast people. All right. So what you got was Grambling had the lead 24-21. Okay. Kentucky State, they get down, they score a touchdown, they take the lead 28-24 late. Okay. Still maybe about 3 minutes left to go when they take the lead 28-24. Then on the ensuing kickoff, the kicker kicks a line drive right into an up man for Grambling. It goes right back to the kicker. He recovers it. Okay. So now I'm thinking at this point, I'm like, Kentucky State has the ball with just about 3 minutes remaining. They're up 4 at this point, 28-24. All right. So then they do some good things. They get it down the field. They get down, to about the 25-yard line. Okay. Now, the play that really got this thing where Kentucky State really could have ended it. Bardell, the quarterback, has a 3rd and about 11. And he is about to get the first down running on a quarterback keeper. And he slides a yard and a half too early. And if he does not slide a yard and a half too early, he gets the first down and Kentucky State runs the clock out because Grambling had no timeouts. Runs the clock out, wins it. Instead, the ensuing play was a 4th and about 1.5 yards. And instead of going for it, they kick a 42-yard field goal. They made it and go up 31-24. And then Zayt Set took over, took them down the field, tied it, sent it overtime. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is this. Grambling, you were so much better than this team. Kentucky State had just got blown out at home the week before by Albany State. And they were picked to finish 9th in the SIAC. This is a team that you shouldn't even been on the field with. So the silver lining in this is you did win the game. But against a team that you should have dominated, this should not give Graham Fam any real good feelings. Now, of course, next week is a whole nother thing, and I'm sure that Mickey Joseph will get into those guys and get them to focus. But you have to come to play all the time, no matter what, right? So, yeah, he said outside of that worst case scenario, they don't get the 4th down. Yeah, and if they don't get the 4th down, they're up by 4 points. Okay, I get that point. But here's the thing, man. Grambling, you got away with one. So you take this thing, you learn from it, you move forward. Period. He says, Mickey Joseph has to look in the mirror. Said, refs cheated because they were ready to go. I hear you, man. I hear you. So yeah, so that's that game, y'all. All right, so now I want to move here to Alabama A&M and Tennessee State. This was considered to be the game of the day. As you can see through the montage, there were a lot of blowouts, a lot of money games, a lot of payments handed out yesterday. So this game right here, A&M got out to a 10-0 lead. And you're thinking, all right, hey, A&M, hey, we rolling. And then all of a sudden, you just started seeing Tennessee State start to find its footing. Now, Tennessee State, you guys have heard me say many times, with Reggie Barlow and Tennessee State, you better beat this guy right now, because you could see that even with the small amount of time that he had to be able to recruit and get guys out of the transfer portal to develop his team, he's got some talent. Kendrick Grimes, the Southern transfer, 111 yards on the ground, gave us fits. They gave us fits. We weren't able to stop the run really at all in that first half, okay? And then Byron McNair, a freshman quarterback who wasn't even on the film, wasn't even in the scouting report. He comes out. He was a dual threat. He ran it. He threw it. He did some really good things, right? But Quad Brown, what more can you say about this guy that you haven't already said? 329 this week, 2 more touchdowns, spread the ball around to several receivers. Trevonte Abner, as you see there, 6 receptions, 104 yards. Now, what's so significant about this here is Trevonte Abner's a tight end. You guys know in HBCU football, the tight ends, they ain't been getting the ball a whole lot. But Trevonte Abner, he got 104 yards yesterday. So he did really, really well. Quad Brown did go down with a little bit of a knee injury there late in the game, and he wasn't in there on the final drive where Eric Hanley, he let him converted a key 4th down to essentially run the clock out. But this game, this was a battle for full 4 quarters. Shout out to Coach Shade and his staff, and also to Coach Schelling, the defensive coordinator, because they held these guys scoreless in the second half. There were some adjustments. They forced two turnovers. They got an interception and they got a late fumble. And so it was a game that you would say that, again, no shade, no pun intended there. I'm not sure with the past that Alabama A&M that we win a game like this, but it just says to the the tenacity that the players have, and that this is a new regime. Things are different. So for A&M, they're going to go on. They're going to play Lane next week, and then they'll get ready for the second part of the stretch run, which is SWAC play, which starts on the 27th down there at Bethune-Cookman. And he said TSU didn't get to the red zone in the second half, correct? You are correct. They did not. They did not get to the red zone. Yeah, said it was fun to watch, man. And also, yeah, prayers to these. Yeah, there was a TSU player early in the second. Well, it was in the first half, late in the first half. He had to be carted off. It was a scary collision. He collided with our ball carrier Maurice Edwards IV, and he was carted off. So prayers to him. But yeah, it was a really, really good game. And yeah, this is a good point here. You expected more than 10K people. True. I thought it was going to be more than 10,000 people there too. But I can guarantee you this. When they play in Huntsville next year in September, it won't be 10,000 people. I can guarantee you that. It'll be way more than that. But big win for Alabama A&M. All right. And definitely we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the program. Now, I do want to go back to the game that I led off with. What a crazy game down there in Greensboro. So I didn't watch this game live, obviously, because there were so many other games on, but I did go back and I watched this game this morning. Hampton, they had this game. They were up 20-10. Like I said, late. The fans down there in Greensboro, many of them already had left. They were already gone. North Carolina A&T, they're down to now their 7th quarterback now. Sanders is the guy who was playing quarterback at the end of this thing, okay? Hampton, up 10, somehow begins to start pulling its starters while A&T has the ball, seemingly thinking that we've got this game in the bag because A&T hadn't really done much of anything up to that point offensively. And with a 7th-string quarterback, you were thinking, we got it. And all of a sudden, Sanders leads them down the field, and they score a touchdown. Now I'm thinking, okay, 20-17, it's not bad. Onside kicks are not very successful, that much successful, but then A&T, they recover it. The ball takes a funky bounce, and they recover the onside kick, and this game they end up going down after they recover the onside kick. Hampton commits an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for late unnecessary roughness, gives them additional 15 yards, and they go down and they get a field goal from 38 yards out to send it to overtime. And as I said before, y'all, you gotta be ready to play, and you have to finish the deal. Hampton shut it down and then tried to ramp it back up once they got into overtime. And all of a sudden, North Carolina A&T got some confidence. They stop and hold Hampton to a field goal on the second possession of overtime, and then Wesley Graves gets the game-winning 5-yarder to win the game 33-30. North Carolina A&T, by many people, including me, didn't think they were going to win a game this year. And now they have. And congrats to Sean Gibbs and his staff on snapping a 12-game losing streak to get back in the winner's circle. And if you're Hampton, man, oh man, oh man. This one's going to stick with you for quite a while. And you don't have long, because you're going to turn around and play another rival in Howard next week in the Truth and Service Classic. So craziness. Crazy game, man. Crazy. So as we're going through the show here, y'all, make sure everybody hits the like button. All right. And if you're watching and you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe. Okay. Let's do that. All right. Now, another game I want to go to here. I want to go down to Tallahassee, and I want to talk about this one. Now, this game right here, everybody knew that this was going to be a close game. Okay. Everybody. They knew, well, let's say everybody that really knows and follows football knew that this was going to be a close game. Albany State, they came in this thing 2-0. Isaiah Knowles was on a heater, right? He was threw for a whole lot of yards, threw for a lot of touchdowns, came in. And for the first half, they were giving FAMU total fits. They led this thing 14-10 at the half. And then, I saw it all on social media. People were like, oh, Lord, what's going on down there in Tallahassee, right? And then all of a sudden, RJ Johnson, hello, young man. He wakes up and comes out there. Jet Petty, the backup, actually played in this game. He had significant snaps too. But RJ Johnson came out in the second half, and he threw for the majority of his yards and 2 touchdowns. And there were 2 other touchdowns that were deep passes. One of them was dropped by Coach Burris's son, had wide open, but it could have been even better than this. So he definitely looked a part of what people thought. Thad Franklin, that running game that had been non-existent through 2 games, it showed up in this game. And then also Kenari Wilcher, he caught one of those long touchdown passes. So in the end, it may not have been pretty for FAMU. But at the end of the day, you got your first win of the season, and you're going on a bye week. And with your bye week, they know they got a lot of things to figure out on both sides of the ball. And when they get off that bye week, they got those hot Alabama State Hornets and Andrew Body coming to town because they're on a bye week also. So, but shout out to Albany State, man, and Quinn Gray. Those guys played a really good game, and they came and battled, man. This game, it was a full 4-quarter game like I thought it would, and they battled. So shout out to Albany State, even in defeat. All right. So now what I want to do now, I want to go and I want to pull something up here because we're at the quarter pole of the season, if you can believe that. 3 weeks into a 12-game schedule, we're at the quarter pole. So we think about where all of our teams, where they stand right now. All right, then there's a lot that has to be brought up about where teams stand. All right, because there's been a lot of angst out there. There's been offensive coordinator switch and change down there in Southern. We've seen a rotation of quarterbacks in a lot of places. And that's something that is very common now in today's college football. But yeah, where does your squad stand as you hit the quarter pole 3 weeks in? Are you still nervous? Do you feel confident? Are you just somewhere in between? But where do you feel about your squad? And as we go through this thing, I'm going to talk about some of the squads and I'm going to pull up some schedules, okay? So first and foremost, here at the quarter pole, I'm going to go and I'm going to pull up a team. I'm going to pull up Jackson State here, all right? So Jackson State yesterday, as you saw, they got a 30-0 win. As a matter of fact, let's go right here. They won 30-0 yesterday. Okay. They played a lot of guys in their depth. And if you are not a fan of Jackson State, I'm here to tell you, yesterday should be something that makes you a little bit more nervous about Jackson State, about how good they really can be, even better than what they already are, by the fact that they played backups and still won 30-0. In Tuskegee, yeah, they had one real shot to score a touchdown or to score really at all, where they had the double pass and they had a guy wide open and he dropped it wide open in the first quarter and dropped the pass. Other than that, they never got close to scoring again. So yeah, like he said, lots of freshmen played yesterday. Okay. And Jared Lockhart is a true freshman at quarterback. Okay. 257 in the air, a touchdown in the air, and 2 on the ground. So yeah, played 10 freshmen. And that is something that will pay for them big dividends as they get later on in the season, as they start playing in the SWAC schedule. Because that depth and guys that are, as TC Taylor talked about in his post-game presser, he said, we got guys that hadn't played snaps of college football before that got in this game and made contributions. Jared Lockhart was one of them. I was very impressed by him. And I said, wow. I said, look at how poised he is throwing the ball. Now, I know some people sit there and say, hey, wow, Wayne, it was just Tuskegee. No, man, forget that. It's football. And these are guys who hadn't been in the game before, hadn't been playing much, or rotational guys, and they get in there and they contribute. That says a lot, man. So now, yeah, like you said, no Morgan, no Jacobian Morgan, no Jonas Fortillion, no Jeremiah Williams. And they still played this game, didn't miss a beat, right? So now, as I said, let's go here. Now, like I said, we're talking about the quarter pole, about where your team is at the quarter pole. All right. So you look at where Jackson State is. Okay. So they're 2-1. They had the game at Southern Miss, but you now look, they got a bye week. And one thing that has to be kind of scary that you think about, the way they played that game yesterday, winning 30-0 without having to play a lot of your stars or your leaders. You guys get guys who might be nicked up because Jeremiah Williams, he was injured. He gets to get another couple weeks off to get himself ready. And then they're going to be ready because that game down there in Southern, listen, I know that Southern is 1-3. And I know that they have not been playing up to where a lot of people thought that they would play. But I'm here to tell you that with that bye week coming that they have as well, yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting. Of course, we'll talk more about that as we go because we got plenty of time to talk about that. But then you see they play Alabama A&M, and then they got Alabama State for homecoming. So you look at the next Southern, Alabama State, Southern, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, and then the trip to Vegas, and then FAMU. You look at those 5 games right there. That is going to tell a whole lot of story here, because that is an interesting 5-game stretch. So where I feel about Jackson State at the quarter pole, feel pretty solid about where they are. I think they're in real good position. Now, let's talk about my squad, Alabama A&M at the quarter pole. So 3 games in, we knew the game against Arkansas, it was what it was. But then these last 2 weeks, figuring it out on defense. Offensively, they've been doing a really, really good job behind Quad Brown. He's been finding the receivers. They've been able to run it situationally. They've given up some yards rushing. But those guys, they've been able to figure it out later on in these games, making adjustments. And so with the Lane College game coming up next week, it's another opportunity to work on some things because they'll be a heavy favorite. When they played 2 years ago, it was 51-13, and we don't expect it to be close at all. So it's another opportunity for A&M to work on some things, get some guys in the depth, down the depth chart, some playing time because, these guys might be called upon. All right. And then they've got the game at Bethune-Cookman to start off with SWAC play. And then after that game, then it's the game against Jackson State. Right? They haven't beaten Jackson State, the last 4 times that they've played. Also, you've got the Magic City Classic. They've lost to Alabama State 3 times in a row, so there's an opportunity with that as well. And then the trip to Grambling. I don't care what you say about Grambling from yesterday. Grambling, they still got talent, okay? And then we know Prairie View, and then also FAMU is someone that they haven't been able to beat since FAMU's been in the SWAC. But the way I feel about Alabama A&M at the quarter pole, I feel really good about us, okay? I really feel good about us. Now, I know I said that they were going to be 5-7 during the preseason, all that good stuff. But offensively, they look a whole lot better than what I thought. They just got to continue to grow defensively, okay? So I feel good about them at the quarter pole. FAMU here at the quarter pole. Man. So for all my FAMU folks, that first game right there against Howard, that one's still going to give you a sour taste in your mouth no matter how long you go down the schedule. Yesterday, we'll see if that was a sign of things maybe to come, right? Maybe your offense, maybe you found some things. Maybe you found something to build with. Defensively, there's still a few question marks there. Guys that they thought would be, leaders. We haven't really seen too much of them yet. But you're heading into a bye week. And after the bye week, you stay right there in Tallahassee. And you got a very tough Alabama State team coming to town. So quarter pole on FAMU. I still have the arrow still going downward. And the reason why I have it kind of going downward is because we still don't know about these guys yet. But we'll see. They're 1-2. And then Valley, shout out to Valley. I'm still going to maintain that they're going to pop somebody. They'll beat Lincoln, but I'm still maintaining that Valley's going to get somebody. And before last night, I would have thought it would have been Bethune-Cookman. But then again, I don't know. Because if Bethune-Cookman somehow starts playing Cam Ransom like they're supposed to, maybe that won't be a win after all. But Valley, just keep building, keep doing things. You got a good quarterback. Got a quarterback there in Josh Brown. Just give him some help, develop him. we'll see what you get. At the quarter pole for Valley, it's still trending evenly because I had them 1 win this year, but we'll see. Now, this team right here at the quarter pole, man, yeah. This team is trending upward for real. And offensively, these guys they've been solid. That first game against UAB, where Body was 312 in the air, 119 on the ground. He followed it up with some more passing yards against Southern. And then yesterday he threw for 4 touchdowns, workmanlike. Now, the thing about Alabama State is about, can they get enough defense when they get into some of these bigger games down this schedule? And also, can you keep Andrew Body healthy? Can he keep himself healthy? Let's just say that. Now, that FAMU game, yeah, it's supposed to be a night game, Jay White. It is a night game. It's going to be crazy, and with them going into a bye week and FAMU going into a bye week, it's going to make for a very interesting opener down there in Tallahassee. Like I just said, they have not beaten FAMU since FAMU's been in the SWAC. So it's going to be a lot of motivation for them to not just start off the SWAC 1-0, but also to finally get FAMU. And then you see 10-11 down there in Jackson State. That's going to be another interesting ball game. But you just look through these guys. At the quarter pole, these guys are trending upward. They're getting better and better every week. Their receiving core, man, that's a really good receiving core. If they had this quarterback play in receiving last year, man, might have been a different story. But yeah, trending upward. Bethune-Cookman at the quarter pole, 0-3. Yesterday, second half, looked a lot better. With Cam Ransom. And I'll pull up what they had here. This was yesterday. Cam Ransom, 302 in the air. All right, 4 touchdowns, and he had 89 on the ground and 2 more touchdowns himself. And he got Malik Huggins involved. Okay, yeah, I know South Carolina State, they raced out on these guys. It was a big lead, but he led them back and made this game respectable. Now, yeah, I know that Tim McClain, he's been there. He's been around college football for a while. But clearly, to me, Cam Ransom's your guy. Now, next week, Edward Waters, man, I'm definitely going to talk about that one on Wednesday when I do my show Wednesday. But Edward Waters, man, they're coming to town playing pretty good. They beat Virginia Union yesterday. So, for me, where Bethune-Cookman is, I only really had them winning 2 games this year, so I see it as even for them. Okay, so now I'll keep going. Now we get into the West here at the SWAC. Southern is definitely a downward arrow on their quarter pole grade because the game against Valley didn't look impressive. Didn't look interested. Didn't look very good in the second half there against Alabama State. In the opener, they gave up a lot of yards on the ground. Okay, yesterday was what it was. Now we'll see what to change at OC with McNair because you're going to really see what it sounds like and what it looks like when they come off this bye and get ready to play Jackson State. Now Strother, he played quarterback yesterday. He looked good in spots. We'll see if he's probably a guy who's in the mix. Cam McCoy's still there, but you've also got Jalen Woods, who's coming out of concussion protocol. But for Southern, when they come out of this bye week, they need to start turning it on fast. Now, for them, even if they lose the game against Jackson State, they can still take care of their business and the rest of them and still get to where they want to go. But they got to get going in a hurry. So their arrow is trending downward at the quarter pole. Alcorn State, another one that is trending downward. This one trended downward for me when they got going in that opener against Northwestern State. That was an ugly game, and then they did some good things offensively against A&M. But defensively, they've got some problems, okay? Quarterback issues, looks like they've got somebody with Jalen Tolbert, but they need to continue to build on some of their offensive momentum that they had from the Alabama A&M game as they head into their bye week. Now they get Pine Bluff after the bye week over there in Memphis for the Southern Heritage. But again, just like I said for Southern, these guys need to get going, and they need to get it going quickly. Now, they get Pine Bluff. If they can win that game, then they get Prairie View coming to their place, right? But they need to get it going and going quickly. They don't have any more margins for errors, okay? Yesterday, that was bad. Now, of course, we knew Mississippi State, that was going to be a win anyway, but it's just the fact that they just didn't even compete, okay? There was nothing you saw there, okay? But Alcorn trending downward, but they can get better here, but at the quarter pole, they're trending downward. Grambling, and this one should be 2-1. Apologies. They're 2-1. You see, I got their outcome there. Grambling, I've got them kind of teetering on the even plane there. That game last night, yeah, they were lucky to get out of there. The Langston game, we didn't know much about it from the Langston game because Langston was in AIA, man. Langston yesterday lost 80-0 to Rio Grande Valley, the same team that beat Prairie View. For Grambling, where we going to find out a lot about these boys, you might not find out a lot about them this week against East Texas A&M, but you definitely going to find out about it at that State Fair Classic on the 27th because that's when it's going to start for these guys. And for Grambling, T-Set has been doing a pretty serviceable job for him. We'll see what happens with defense. Bryce Cage is a really good guy that you can lean on that defense. But you got to see a little bit more from those guys in the passing game, from their receivers. But we'll see it. They're going to play some better teams now. So we're going to see who Grambling really is. Right now, I got them at an even plane at the quarter pole. Prairie View. Now, they started with that emotional win. And then last week against Rio Grande Valley, took a step back. Yesterday was a game that they were expected not to win, but they competed well against Rice. You know, it was only 38-17. They had some chances. They did some good things. Now they need to figure out who's going to be their starting quarterback going forward, okay? Definitely need to figure that out. They've had Cam Peters. You know, they just need to figure it out, okay? Now, this week against Northwestern State is an opportunity for them to try to get right. Northwestern State's coming to their house. They beat them last year. They're favored. They should beat them if they play their game. And then again, just like I said in the previous screen, against Grambling, that's when you're going to really start figuring out where Prairie View really is going. Right now, I've got them even at the quarter pole. But you see, after the next 3 games, after this Northwestern State, that is telling a lot of the story for Prairie View. If Prairie View comes out here and they get all 3 of those games and be 4-0 in the SWAC headed into their homecoming game, look out. That's all I'm going to say there. All right. UAPB, even with yesterday's win, that was a struggle. Okay. But they're in the winner's circle. Shout out to you guys. Now, Texas Southern. Chris Dishman said it was a disgusting display of football yesterday. And it was. Those guys had 2 punts blocked, returned for a touchdown yesterday. Quarterback-wise, KJ Cooper struggled yesterday. They didn't get much done, okay? So after that game, the opener, it appears the last 2 weeks they've had a little bit of a hangover. So now they're headed into their bye week. Chris Dishman was not happy last night. He said a whole lot of things about his team. He said, it starts with me. He said, we're not playing inspired football right now. And that starts with me as the head coach. They're headed into a bye week. And then you see the next 2 games, they get Valley down on the road, and then they play Pine Bluff at home. Now, those are 2 winnable games, but if they want to try to get back in the mix there in the SWAC West, again, when you come out of that bye week, you better get started and get started quick because you don't have any room or any margin for error, especially the fact that you're already 1 in the hole there on the SWAC. All right. Now we go to the MEAC. At the quarter pole for North Carolina Central. They're right where I had them. I said they'd be 2-2 after 4 games. Now, the crazy thing is, I said that they'd also finished 10-2. So I've got them running the table the rest of the way. Now, defensively, they've had some lapses, especially in that New Hampshire game. Also, Walker Harris, he had a good opener, was not so good against New Hampshire and Old Dominion, and last night he had a really good game. Okay, so now they're going to play their rival, the Aggie Eagle Classic, next week. That's another non-conference game, and then they go to Texas, and then they go to FAMU. So they've got 3 more non-conference efforts before they start that SWAC slate, which against a Delaware State team that now all of a sudden is starting to look pretty formidable. All right. I've got these boys even, and you saw some signs last night that these guys are definitely going to be a team to watch and a team that's probably still in the driver's seat there in the MEAC. But we'll see. Quarter pole got North Carolina Central even. South Carolina State, I got these guys trending upward, man. And the reason why I got them trending upward, man, these guys defensively, now I know they gave up 41 last night, but, you know, they were up 41-13 heading in the fourth quarter, okay? Defensively, these guys have played a lot better than what a lot of folks thought. That game against Wofford, you know, defensively, they didn't allow Wofford to even reach the red zone. Okay. The score that Wofford had, their touchdown was on a kickoff return. Okay. Then they gave South Carolina some fits. And then Bethune-Cookman, they gave them some fits. So I've got them trending upward. Stubblefield appears to be the guy at quarterback. He's looking pretty good for him. He came back with a lot of experience because he played some games for him last year. So I've got these guys trending upward. Now, you see, they've got South Florida. That's a money game. But then Charleston Southern, that's definitely a winnable game. And then, you know, Savannah State for homecoming, another winnable one. And then they go to North Carolina A&T for their homecoming. So you look at, they've got, after South Florida, they've got 3 very winnable games before Norfolk State is their opponent when they start MEAC play. I got these guys trending upward. They were picked to win the MEAC by the media. And so far, they look like they're going to be right there. Of course, everybody's looking at that game on November 15th against North Carolina Central. We'll see how it goes. But right now, trending upward for South Carolina State. Morgan State, ooh, man, trending downward. They're downward, man, because here at the quarter pole, they're downward because yesterday they didn't compete at all. 4 first downs the whole game. And they only had 58 yards of total offense. And, you know, that game against Towson, that was a big letdown for them. That was a game that they were in control of. They were winning that game. They dominated the offensive stats, but they did not make the key plays they needed to make down the stretch. And they also have had turnover problems. They committed 4 turnovers in the first game against South Alabama. They committed 3 more against Towson, and they committed a few yesterday. So as you look at their schedule, it's kind of crazy that they're playing Central State, Miles, and Virginia Lynchburg 3 of the next 4. And Georgetown is another winnable game. So I'm going to keep their trending downward because you're not going to change a lot of my mind until you get into that MEAC play at Howard on the 25th. Norfolk State. I got these guys kind of going downward. And the reason being is because they're still trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Now, I do like the fact that they went on and started Otto Coons at quarterback yesterday. Whether he remains quarterback, we'll see. But these guys, they have time to figure it out. Sacred Heart, Wagner, those are winnable games coming up. Hampton, that's a toss-up. Wofford, that's winnable. But then we'll see where it goes. But these guys, Michael Vick, he's still learning on the job, and you can see it. So they've got time. Howard, still kind of even. They're playing a little bit better than what I thought. That first game was a surprise, but they did win that game. And then yesterday they were expected to win against Morehouse, and they did. This week they take on a rival in Hampton. We'll see what's what. They still got kind of offensive issues against some of those bigger and better teams, so we'll see how they go this week. And then Delaware State, definitely trending upward. And the reason why they're trending upward, hey, man, they're in the winner's circle, and they've been getting better all the time. Caden Bennett and Marquise Gillis, they've been playing really well. Those receivers have been improving. Defensively, we'll see what it looks like now as they start getting into the next part of their schedule. 3 of the next 4 are very winnable at St. Francis, at Sacred Heart, and Southern Connecticut State. Those are winnable games. Monmouth is a toss-up because Monmouth is a pretty good team, but these guys are playing a lot better than what I expected. So now, as we head down the stretch here of the show, everybody, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe. 3 more teams here to talk about here at the quarter pole. The Aggies, even after getting a win yesterday. We'll see what happens to them next. I thought that they might win 1, maybe 2. I thought they wouldn't win any games, but they did. I said the best case scenario for them would have been maybe winning 2. The Campbell game definitely is winnable down the stretch, but we'll see what happens now. Coming in off a win, now going to play Aggie Eagle Classic at home. We'll see what it's like. All right. But trending evenly for these guys. Hampton, trending downward at the quarter pole. You can't lose a game like that last night, having a 20-10 lead late. And then also, they didn't play a very inspired game against Elizabeth City State. So this week they play Howard. It's a good opportunity to get back and try to get your lick back because you got some tougher games ahead. Elon is no slouch. And then Norfolk State, toss up. So we'll see how it goes. Hampton definitely trending down at the quarter pole. And then lastly, Tennessee State, even. That game against North Dakota State, everybody knew what that was. No surprise. Okay, North Carolina A&T, they did some really good things, and they outlasted them. Yesterday, the game could have went either way. Okay, but now they got some tougher games coming. Tennessee Tech, after their bye week, they're expected to win the Big South OVC. They're a ranked team. That's a tough game. They got some tough games ahead. But this year, though, this is a building year for Coach Barlow. So trending evenly for Tennessee State. All right. So now we're into the final part of the show tonight, where now I get a chance to hand out my ride tokens. My ride tokens this week, y'all. I got to go with, decided to go with Tariq Starks of Howard. Howard offensively had been struggling, but Tariq Starks, he was really good yesterday. 241 in the air, two touchdowns passing, and he had a rush touchdown, right? Shout out to Coach Larry Scott and those guys. They're 2-1, doing some things as they get ready for a big game this week, but Tariq Starks. Then Quad Brown, I couldn't leave him off this list again, man. Couldn't leave him. He was on my list last week. He gets back on here again. 329 this week and 2 touchdowns, right? He was excellent yesterday, okay? Then defensively, I went with A&M's team defense, right? Because they held Tennessee State scoreless in the second half, and they forced 2 big turnovers. Then my special teams token, I got to give it to North Carolina A&T for recovering that onside kick. That onside kick recovery, man, that was huge. Huge. And when they got it, they had turned around and took it down the field and kicked the tying field goal to go to overtime. So, yeah, these are my ride tokens for week number 3. Week number 3. Now, we will go to next week's schedule as we finish things out. All right. So next week in the SWAC on the Griot, you've got Edward Waters coming in with an unbeaten record, staying in state to challenge Bethune-Cookman. We'll talk more about that game on Wednesday. Lane College, SIAC comes to the Hill to take on Alabama A&M. That game will be on SWAC TV. Night game for them. Then you got the Northwestern State Demons. Man, those guys, they've had a rough couple of weeks here after getting that first win over Alcorn, man. It's the 2 money games. They've been getting pounded. But they go play Prairie View. That'll be on SWAC TV Saturday night. And then you've got East Texas A&M in the return match against Grambling. They played last year in Commerce. It went to double overtime, and Grambling was able to get the win. Okay, so why does it seem like everybody taking their bye at the same time? Yeah, it is. Now, I want to answer this. I assume, Paris, you're talking about you guys with the ride tokens. You guys also played Tuskegee. A&M played Tennessee State. That's why they got the nod over you guys. But Paris, still very impressive what you guys did. I acknowledged. All right, so that's the SWAC schedule for this week coming. Then we switch over to the MEAC and the CAA. Tennessee State has a bye week next week. So if I switch back one, everybody else in the SWAC has a bye week. 8 teams in the SWAC has a bye week. There we go. Here we go. MEAC and CAA with Tennessee State being on bye week. You've got early noon kickoff down there in Tampa with South Carolina State taking on the USF Bulls on ESPN Plus. You got Central State out of SIAC going to Baltimore to take on Morgan State as they look to get in the win column. That'll be on ESPN Plus. And then there was no TV listed for the next couple games. You've got Delaware State going to take on St. Francis there in PA. And then this actually is switched. I have this one listed the wrong way, actually. It's Sacred Heart at Norfolk State. Sacred Heart at Norfolk State. Okay. So Sacred Heart playing at Norfolk State. That'll be in Dick Price Stadium. And then you've got the Truth and Service Classic, or the Battle of the Real HU on HBCU Go, as you've got Howard taking on Hampton there at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. And then last but not least, on Flow College Network, you've got the Aggie Eagle Classic edition this year going down in Greensboro with those North Carolina Central Eagles taking on the North Carolina A&T Aggies, flying high after getting a win. So, yeah, like Jay White said, looks like you'll be watching a lot of MEAC football this Saturday. At least during the day you will. Now, if I can pop back one, this game right here, the first one, that is an afternoon matchup. 3 p.m. Eastern is the game down there in Daytona. And surprisingly, that's their home opener. After 3 road games, that's the home opener for Bethune-Cookman. The other 3 games here are all 7 p.m. Eastern starts. All right. 7 p.m. Eastern for Alabama A&M, and then 8 p.m. Eastern for Prairie View and Grambling. And then you see the schedule here. So that is next week's schedule. And I will be back with you on this coming Wednesday as we get ready for week number 4. I will be on again at 9:30 Eastern on this coming Wednesday, as I have a good amount of information to discuss with everybody about these games that are coming. Yeah, I know the slate looks a little bit light this week, but when everybody gets off of this bye week, when we get to the 27th, man, is it going to be awesome. So when I come on here with you guys next Sunday night for the recap, we'll get to talk about that great slate coming up on the 27th. But for now, I hope everybody is well. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe on your way out. And as always, I appreciate everybody for joining me, as you always do, every time I tee it up. It's The Ride. I'm Wild Wayne Cartwright. I love y'all. See ya. Good night.
Thank you for joining us on The Ride with Wild Wayne Cartwright. As you exit the ride, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the like button, and catch up on all of our prior episodes. Until next time, God bless.